Hello, this is Hwan-san Sinim, and welcome to our program. Several months ago, I had the opportunity to go to a silent Buddhist meditation retreat in Northern California in the United States. And the retreat space was located in a very, very beautiful part of California. And the people who came were very, very nice. And the program was really, really well run. And everybody had a good time. But I couldn't help but feel in the course of that program that while we were performing meditation, it didn't exactly feel like Buddhist meditation. What the Dharma teachers, most of whom I believe come from a psychotherapy background, kept emphasizing was feeling things like love and joy and well-being and health, and talking about the importance of family relationships and human relationships in general, and leading a fulfilling life. Now, I agree all of these things are very important, but I think it's very important also for us to remember that well-being and mental health are not the true purpose of Buddhist meditation. So I think that there is a real distinction to be made between Buddhist meditation and other forms of meditation. And within that context, we can also ask ourselves, what are the distinctive features of living phrase sun meditation, which we share on this program. So let's ask ourselves first, what is meditation generally speaking? And I would like to suggest that maybe we could define meditation, generally speaking, as the use of sustained attention on an object or a set of objects designed for the purpose of bringing about a desired change. For example, as when people use visualization techniques to bring about something good, a good change for either themselves or their loved ones. Similarly, just as the purpose or goal of a particular form of meditation can vary, the methods of meditation are also extremely diverse. Some meditation forms use a specialized breathing technique. Living phrase sun meditation, which we share in this program, for example, uses dantian or abdominal breathing. But then there are other forms of meditation that don't use specialized breathing. For example, Vipassana of the Theravada Buddhist tradition does not use any specialized breathing technique. The way we hold and move our bodies in meditation can also differ widely. In living phrase sun meditation, of course, the standard posture is a static seated position, usually and traditionally in the lotus or half lotus position. But people can move in meditation as well and use other postures as well. As is well known, for example, in postural yoga, people, which we can consider a form of meditation, people perform all different kinds of specialized postures, which are called asanas. And then in other kinds of meditation, there can be very slow movement, as in some forms of yoga, and also in, for example, Tai Chi and other forms of Chinese Taoist Qigong energy cultivation practices. And whether many people know it or not, you can even move very rapidly and very vigorously in meditation. For example, some forms of dance meditation use extremely powerful repeated movements to induce states of either trance or ecstasy or whatever state of consciousness that they are aiming at. Another thing that can vary across meditation styles is the object of meditation. What I mean by the object of meditation is the thing, internally or externally, that you are sending your mental gaze at. So, for example, we can meditate upon an external object in a religious tradition, such as a sacred icon or a sacred piece of religious artwork like a mandala, or a religious image. We can also meditate upon text, a repeated phrase, as in certain forms of mantra repetition, or the recitation of the Buddha's name, which is often used in many forms of the Buddhist tradition, Buddhist meditative tradition. And we can also focus our attention on internal objects. We can visualize, for example, within our own minds, the image, a sacred image of a religious leader or deity, and that's a so-called visualization practice. We can also, within our own minds, use a repeated phrase. The phrase that we use on this program, imoko, is an example. But also in some forms of Christian meditation, for example, certain kinds of prayer phrases may be repeated in the mind over and over again. You can even direct your attention at something that's going on in your body. For example, in Vipassana, the meditators famously direct their attention at the sensation of their breath moving in and out of their nostrils. In certain forms of modern biofeedback meditation, the meditator, by using some technological support like a heart monitor, can direct their attention and fix it on their heartbeat. So in meditation methods come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. But what is universal is that all cultures, all nations, all societies throughout history have always used meditation, some form of meditation, for one purpose or another, in one form or another. Most likely, the forms of religious meditation that have become famous throughout the world have their roots in shamanic practices. In ancient communities where shamans practiced, they were called upon to perform certain duties for the community, and these duties could include things like curing an illness, or expelling an evil spirit, or predicting the weather, or deciding where to build a house, or deciding who should marry who, or giving life advice, and so on. And in order to provide such solutions for the members of their communities, the shamans, over the centuries, many millennia ago, developed what we now call meditation practices. Sometimes these practices involve the use of certain chemicals found in plants, what we now call drugs. Or they use the kinds of methods of posture and breathing and mental focus and so forth that we associate with more modern forms of meditation. And using these forms of mind-body cultivation, they were able to, it is said, they were able to summon up extraordinary or enhanced human abilities in order to provide the kinds of often magical solutions that their community was asking for. This type of meditation may seem very ancient, but the truth is even today, modern people still continue to practice modern versions of these kinds of meditation practices. These days, we call them psychic powers. And there are some people who want to develop the ability, for example, for telepathy or out-of-body experiences, as in astral projection, or the ability to know the future, or the ability to know what's going on in remote locations. So there are people who do meditate for the purpose of gaining extraordinary abilities. Within the Sun Buddhist tradition, such forms of meditation, which have as their goal the development of what seem like psychic powers, is called heretical Sun meditation. It is considered an inappropriate use of meditation. Why is that? It's because hidden within this drive to develop an extraordinary ability is a will to power, is a will to gain dominance, it is said. And because of that, it is taught that the practice of heretical forms of meditation can lead to disaster. They can bring disastrous events upon you. They can ruin your health. They can even, according to the tradition, drive you insane. So the Sun Buddhist tradition at least strongly warns against the practice of heretical meditation. Most people in the modern world, however, today, use meditative practices for more mundane and secular purposes. For example, many people use different kinds of meditation methods to enhance their performance in whatever their field of activity is. One example is the use of visualization techniques by high-performance athletes, such as Olympic athletes and also such as professional athletes. And what this involves is that the athlete envisions in their mind, visualizes in their mind in great detail a successful performance of whatever sport or competition they're involved in. And scientists have found that when they actually perform their sports in their mind, it has an effect on the body. You can actually increase your muscle mass through this type of meditative practice. In a slightly less dramatic, though no less effective way, many business and political leaders today use the same or similar visualization methods to help their public speaking ability. They don't simply rehearse what they're going to say. They visualize in their mind the performance of their public speech and the reaction of the audience that they're talking to. And this gives a much more powerful enhancement to their public speaking ability. Artists also use meditation to increase their creative ability and also to break free of unconsciously held assumptions or inhibitions that may be holding back their creative expression. A very well-known Korean actor, for example, uses actually the meditation that we teach on this program, Living Phrase Sun Meditation, to enhance his performances in movies and TV. What he does is he practices meditation before he goes in front of the camera. And what he finds is that by meditating in this way, he is able to become much more emotionally sensitive within, so that when it comes time to perform, he can deliver a performance that is much more subtle and nuanced and rich and deep. Interestingly enough, he also uses meditation directly after the performance to sort of cool down and also to remove any residue, emotional residue that may remain within his psyche after giving the performance. But I think in the modern world today, the vast majority of people who meditate practice meditation for health reasons, most often to deal with the symptoms of stress. They help lower blood pressure, cure insomnia, deal with indigestion, and so forth. They also help, of course, with mental symptoms of stress like anger, anxiety, worry, obsessive thinking, and so forth. So one way or the other, whether we're using some form of meditation to enhance our performance or to elevate our health or protect our health, all of these things are considered within the Sun Buddhist tradition forms of what is called mundane meditation, meaning meditation that is directed at secular goals for enhancing our life experience in society. And although this is a legitimate form of meditation, within the Sun Buddhist tradition, it's not considered an authentic form of Buddhist meditation. Buddhist, remember, literally means the teaching of enlightenment. Buddhism is defined by the quest for enlightenment. And so when we posit a goal that is not enlightenment in our meditation practice, we can say it's meditation, but it becomes harder to say that it's Buddhist meditation. According to the Sun Buddhist tradition, at least, all legitimate forms of Buddhist meditation have as their goal the goal of enlightenment. So let's listen now to Sun Master Songdam's Dharma speech as he explains to us the distinctive features of living phrase sun meditation.
옥토 승진 최로상여 금오 출모 청년광이로다 구리 여조로요 혹고혹영 사성년이로다 평상시 행주 좌와 간에 어묵동정 간에 밥 먹을 때, 똥 눌 때, 소지할 때, 도량을 거닐 때, 눈이나 귀를 통해서 무슨 무엇이 보이거나 귀에 들릴 그런 찰나찰나에 그리 정신을 빼앗기지 않고 바로 그에 즉해서 더 화두를 들 줄 아는 그렇게 하루하루를 한 시간 한 시간을 1초 1초를 그렇게 한 생각을 잘 단속을 해야 참으로 정진을 옳게 하는 수행자라고 생각을 합니다. 법성계 일념 즉시 무량겁이요 무량원겁이 즉 일념이다. 그런 구절이 있습니다. 무량겁은 처음부터 무량겁이 딱 있는 것이 아니고 1초 1초가 모아가지고 무량겁이 되는 것입니다. 그 한 생각을 잘 단속해 나가야 그 일념을 잘 단속해 나가야 무량겁 생사윤회를 해탈하게 되는 것입니다. 붉게 불에 달군 쇠꼬챙이가 눈 가까이 올 때 그런 긴박한 경우를 한번 생각해 보십시오. 조울림이 오다가도 퍼쩍 정신이 차려질 것이고 잡담을 하다가도 그런 생각이 쑥 들어가고 화두가 더 성성하게 거각하게 될 것입니다. 생사가 무상한 것은 우리 출가한 스님네나 발심한 청신사, 청신녀 여러분들도 마찬가지입니다. 정말 무상을 철저히 깨닫고 오늘부터는 한 생각을 잘 단속을 하고 다른 사람 보고 웃을 것이 아니라 항상 자기 자신을 돌아보고 항상 나는 어떠한가 그렇게 해서 자기의 생각을 돌이킨다면 우리는 도 닦는 데 많은 도움이 되리라고 생각을 합니다.
So in his Dharma speech, Sun Master Songdam tells us that the most important thing when we want to practice living phrase sun meditation is an urgent, immediate realization of the reality of impermanence. How urgent must this realization be? Sun Master Songdam brings up the metaphor of the red-hot poker. Imagine a red-hot poker that is steadily approaching your eye, 4 centimeters away, 3 centimeters away, 2 centimeters away, 1 centimeter away. how urgent will your state of mind be? That's how strong our feeling and awareness of impermanence should be. Under these conditions, in that frame of mind, we no longer become interested in forms of meditation like heretical sun meditation or mundane meditation. What will the acquisition of extraordinary abilities do in the face of impermanence and mortality? What value and use are things like wealth and fame and power in the face of the ravages of time? So it is this realization of impermanence that sets us on the course for trying to attain enlightenment. Now, currently in the modern world, there are a number of enlightenment meditation practices that are very popular. And I would like to briefly review some of the most popular ones and see how they compare and differ with the kind of meditation, living phrase, sun meditation, that we share on this program. So the first kind of meditation that I would like to consider, one that is maybe the most popular form of meditation in the world, are the so-called Taoist energy cultivation practices. Now, I'm just going to call this by their popularized name for convenience's sake, and it's often referred to as Qigong. So in Qigong, the practitioner uses certain specialized postures and breathing techniques, as well as concentration methods, to regulate the flow of what is called qi, a kind of life energy that is said to flow through the human body and mind, as well as between our body and the universe that surrounds us. It's taught within the Taoist tradition that there is a network of invisible channels in our body called qi meridians through which the qi flows. And all of our mental health and physical health are both dependent on the healthy and proper circulation of this qi through our system of energy channels. And traditional Taoist energy cultivation practitioners believe that if we learn to correct, regulate, and enhance the flow of qi through our body, first of all, we will achieve physical health, because all physical ailments are said to be rooted in the improper flow of qi. So once we get the qi flowing properly, we will attain physical health, and not only physical health, mental health. And if we continue to practice certain forms of Qigong, we can even begin to awaken hidden abilities within our body and mind and gain extraordinary perceptual abilities as well as other kinds of abilities. And if we continue on with religious forms of qi cultivation, then we can transform and refine this energy as well as regulate its flow so that our consciousness becomes entirely transformed. And we gain what is called in the Taoist tradition immortality. Now, immortality, historically speaking, in Taoism has been defined in a number of ways. The most simple and common way to define it is immortality of the physical body itself. And in ancient times, there are legends of qi practitioners who were able to live to extremely old ages, 500 years old, 600 years old, and so forth, through qi cultivation and other methods such as diet restriction and so forth. Another way is the attainment of a kind of energy system and consciousness that itself becomes eternal. And finally, in philosophical Taoism, immortality is seen as a metaphor for the joining of our consciousness, the opening up of our consciousness to that which is eternal in the universe, namely the mysterious Tao, the way of things that is hidden within all things. So this is roughly, I believe, the path toward enlightenment that is described by the practitioners of Chinese Taoist energy cultivation. So, and I believe that that this is actually, numerically speaking, the most popular form of enlightenment meditation practice in the world today. Next is another form of practice that is very familiar to modern people, and that, of course, is yoga. The word yoga comes from the Sanskrit word root, yuj, Y-U-J, which means to yoke, to attach, to unite, and to merge. And often that base meaning is expanded and elaborated to be defined as union. The purpose of yoga is union. And sometimes that union is defined as the union of mind, body, and spirit, or the union of the individual self with the universal self, or the union of individual consciousness with divine consciousness. There are different ways of describing it. Now, there are very many different kinds of yoga, but today I'll discuss the one that is most well known in the world, namely postural yoga, the kind of yoga that emphasizes the use of postures, which again are called asanas, within that kind of yoga. And although externally speaking, the practice of yoga looks very different from that of Qigong, actually, the way that the path toward enlightenment is described and the strategy used in yoga is remarkably similar to that used in Qigong. Once again, specialized postures are used, and specialized breathing techniques, and specialized concentration techniques. And all of these are used in most cases to direct the flow again of energy through an invisible network of channels in the body. In the yogic tradition, this energy is called prana. Some people equate prana and chi, while other specialists say that they're actually very different. But one way or the other, the overall sort of diagram of practice is very similar. That once again, it is blockages in the flow of this energy of prana that is the cause, that is considered the cause of all mental and physical ailments. And when we break through these blockages and regulate and fix and repair and enhance the flow of energy through our system, then we gain increasing levels of mental and physical health. And if we continue on to more specialized levels of yoga practice, then we can also gain access to hidden extraordinary abilities of the mind and body. And finally, as in Qigong, if we completely master the circulation of energy, we are able to awaken hidden levels of energy within the mind and body. And with the awakening and proper regulation of these hidden levels of energy, we are able to completely transform our consciousness and gain what is usually called in yoga samadhi, which again is that union that was described at the beginning of my explanation of yoga. But one way or the other, this is roughly the path to enlightenment that is described by many schools of postural yoga that are dedicated to the attainment of enlightenment. The similarities between Qigong and yoga are striking, and there's a historical reason for that. It's now known that there was cultural exchange between China, where the Taoist energy cultivation practices were developed, and India, where the yoga practices were developed. So Indian yoga practices had a strong effect on Chinese Taoist practices, which in turn were exported to India and exerted influence there as well. So you can see a striking similarity in the maps of the network of energy channels that are drawn in both India and in China. So as I mentioned, probably yoga and Qigong are the most widespread enlightenment meditation practices in the world. And when I say widespread, I don't just mean that there are very many people doing it, but also it's widely spread across traditions, regardless of religious leanings. So there are Buddhist, Christian, Muslim, Hindu practitioners of both yoga and Qigong. There are also practitioners who are not committed to any religious tradition. There are even practitioners who actually reject traditional religion. So in the past, say 100 years, Qigong and yoga have become very widely spread indeed across the world. Now, in more recent decades, there is another form of Buddhist meditation that has also become quite widespread, not only among many people, but also across different kinds of traditions and disciplines. And this is Vipassana, which originates from the Theravadan Buddhist tradition, which itself is widespread in Southeast Asia. Now, in Vipassana meditation, a simple seated posture is used, and no special breathing technique is applied. Instead, one learns how to focus one's attention on specific aspects of internal and external reality. Traditionally, the Vipassana meditator learns to enhance their power of attention first on the in-breath and out-breath of air that passes through their nostrils. And once they're able to enhance their perception of this experience, they direct that enhanced perception systematically throughout all parts of the body, externally and internally. So they gain an incredibly detailed, rich and subtle and deep experiential understanding of physical existence. They gain an understanding of the body. And this can take many years, even decades, even perhaps a lifetime to get to this level of attainment. And then after the body, the experience of the body is thoroughly understood through direct insight, next, all the different kinds of physical and emotional sensations, response, are now studied in exactly the same manner, using enhanced perception and attention. And then after that, all of the possible mind states, the activity of the mind, all the different kinds of thoughts and imagery and so forth, all of the different kinds of mental activity that arise and then abide and then decline and disappear in our mind. And the nature of all mental processes is experientially completely comprehended and mastered. And finally, all of the constituent parts of physical external reality are also observed in the same manner with an incredibly enhanced perception. It is said that advanced Vipassana practitioners can observe reality at the atomic level, even at the quantum level, and they can observe the constituents of reality, the component parts, flickering in and out of existence. And through this incredible journey of meditation, the Vipassana practitioner learns through his or her own experience that this body, as beautiful and as attractive as it may seem at times, is in fact unwholesome, unclean, that all of the physical and emotional sensations that so preoccupy our attention and that can deliver such experiences of pleasure are in fact pervaded with pain, no matter how apparently attractive they may seem, that all of the mind states, all of the activity within our minds that are so intricate and subtle are at the end of the day impermanent, and finally, the physical reality that surrounds us that seems so concrete and so substantial is in fact empty and insubstantial. And through this meditative journey, the Vipassana practitioner learns that there is nothing to get attached to in this universe, within the body or outside of the body, and they relinquish all emotional and other kinds of attachments to the world, and therefore they are able to gain access to the final level of insight beyond the reality that we know, and it is this final level of insight that they call enlightenment. So each form of meditation has its own strategy toward attaining enlightenment as well as its own vision of enlightenment. Now I would like to consider in which ways the kind of meditation that we practice here, living phrase sun meditation, overlaps with those kinds of with those other kinds of meditation, and in which ways that living phrase sun meditation might be distinct. So let's observe first and most obviously that like Qigong and other Taoist energy cultivation practices, sun meditation also uses a specialized breathing technique, namely Dantian breathing. And in fact, Dantian breathing is actually borrowed from the Taoist tradition. However, unlike most Taoist practices, living phrase sun meditation can be performed without this breathing. This form of breathing, as helpful as it is not the core, is not the essence and heart of sun meditation. Similarly, sun meditation makes use of a yogic posture, just as in postural yoga traditions. We use, of course, the classical lotus position, which also was borrowed from the Indian yogic tradition. But once again, this posture is not the defining feature of sun meditation. It is not the core. Sun meditation can actually be performed in any posture and with almost all forms of breathing. The heart of sun meditation is its mental focus. And in this way, it's similar to Vipassana meditation, which is also defined, I believe, by its mental focus. But the object of the focus is different. In Vipassana meditation, the practitioner directs their attention to different objects of concern and tries to penetrate into the reality of those targets, whether they be certain physiological processes, certain emotional responses, mental states, or parts of external reality. In contrast to this, and what I believe is unique to living phrase sun meditation, especially in the practice of the Imoko Hwadu, is that the sun meditator directs their attention inward toward the perceiver itself. This is very unusual, I believe, because in all of the other forms of meditation that I have ever heard of, the meditator directs their attention, directs their perception away from the thing within that is perceiving. Whether it is a mantra, a sacred image, a piece of text, a sound, a fragrance, a physiological event such as breathing or a heartbeat, whatever it may be, nearly all other forms of meditation direct their attention away from the thing that pays attention. It's only in Imoko Hwadu practice that we direct our attention inward toward the source of attention itself. And this, I think, is very interesting. It is within the practice of Imoko only, I believe, that we actually, from the very beginning of meditation practice, try to perceive with our mental gaze the actual thing that we're trying to get enlightened to. From the very beginning, we are trying to look at the thing that we want to awaken to, that we want to open our eyes to, so to speak. This is very unusual. And when we do that, as we know, when we try to turn our gaze inward and see the perceiver within, to know the knower within, to see the seer within, we become blocked. And as a natural consequence of becoming blocked, we are unable to see this internal source of ours. We enter into the state of doubt. And in this state of being blocked, in this state of being unable to see the seer, to perceive the perceiver, we directly confront the problem of unenlightenment. It is in that moment that we are most keenly aware that we are not, in fact, enlightened. And it is in that moment that we are trying to break through our unenlightenment. So this is a very, very direct approach to attaining enlightenment. We are literally, from beginning to end, without any change in the actual method that we use, we are trying to break through to enlightenment. And this is one of the defining Korean phrases that is used to describe the experience of enlightenment in the Korean Sun meditative tradition. It's literally called a breakthrough, getchim, to break through that which obstructs us from seeing our own true nature. It is this directness of approach, I believe, that causes Sun Master Songdam and the entire Sun Buddhist tradition to call this form of meditation the most direct route to enlightenment. Now, in sharing these insights with you, I don't want to sit here and say, this form of meditation is the best form of meditation in the world, and everybody in the world should practice living phrase sun meditation. I don't want to say that because people are different. And what works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for me. But I do think that we should be aware of some of the unique features of sun meditation as we practice it. And be aware if we happen to be trying to choose between certain kinds of meditative practice. Again, in sun meditation, from the very beginning, we direct our attention toward that which we want to be enlightened to. But what's also a very powerful advantage and benefit of sun meditation is that we can use it, we can practice it in almost all situations, because it is defined by the direction of attention back at its own source, meaning us. So wherever we go, because we are directing our attention internally within us, we can practice this form of meditation. We can apply it in all the things that we do. So I'm not going to say practice living phrase sun meditation instead of what you're doing, but I can suggest to you that you can do it with whatever you're doing. If you happen to like Qigong, you can use the Iboko Hadu with Qigong. If you practice yoga, you can do it with yoga. You can even go into a health club and use modern methods of exercise. I've actually tried it, and do the Imoko Hadu and adjust your breathing accordingly and do it as you work out. You can even do it while running. You can even do it while jogging. So this is the unique feature, I believe, of sun meditation, that it is adaptable to many different kinds of lifestyles. And what that means most profoundly, I believe, is that sun meditation is the form of meditative practice that will take whatever kind of life you're living, your lifestyle, and transform it into a direct path toward enlightenment. So this is something to consider as we continue in our practice. Once again, we've come to the end of another episode. Thank you once again to all of our viewers who watched today's program, and I will conclude again with the traditional Buddhist greeting. May we all attain enlightenment.
은근 수선도 아니 속성불과 재미미련이라나 금세 약불 총사하면 후세 당연 한만단 하리라 나 모호